Cheap, fast internet with worldwide coverage. Is it possible? Well, this is precisely the ambitious project of Elon Musk. The billionaire with his innovations has reached the top position as the richest person in the world in January 2021. You've probably heard the story of Elon Musk and Tesla, his electric car company, that put him in second place. But perhaps the most innovative business he is currently doing is Starlink, a high-speed, low-latency, low-cost-to-consumer satellite internet system that is accessible anywhere in the world. Best of all, it is already working in some places around the world and should cover the whole world by 2021, according to the company's official website. Now the big questions are, what will change in our lives as ordinary users? Will it be superior to 5G or the cable internet we have today? And the most important question of all, how will this impact the future of humanity? These are exactly the questions that we will answer in this video. Internet via satellite is not something new. The technology has been around for years, but its only differentiator from other conventional internet systems is availability. After all, it costs more, is slower, has higher latency, and is less reliable, and can lose signal quite often. The only advantage so far for satellite internet was accessibility in remote locations, but Starlink plans to retire the industry's competitors with cheaper, faster, less latency, and highly stable internet. But how much faster is it? According to the Whistle Out portal, Starlink's average projected speed is 30 to 70 times faster than its satellite competitors in the United States. The promise is that it will be so efficient that it could even cause a serious headache for traditional internet companies that operate with cable or mobile networks, such as 4G and 5G. But before we compare this technology to traditional ones, we need to understand how this bizarre idea came about, why it is far superior to traditional satellite internet, and what the big purpose behind it is. Officially announced in January 2015, Musk planned to develop a satellite internet system to capture part of this trillion-dollar market. At the time, he had already submitted documents to international regulators to put 4,000 satellites into orbit. According to Musk, there is a huge worldwide demand for the low-cost global internet. The initial goal was to absorb the majority of the world's long-distance traffic, and that's about 10% of the short-haul traffic. In the long term, Elon Musk hopes that this project will be able to finance even his more ambitious plan to colonize Mars, and he jokes that this satellite internet technology will be the same as the one used on Mars to communicate with Earth, since there is no cable internet there. What gets people excited is the efficiency of the technology, which operates very differently from other satellite internet providers. HughesNet, for example, has satellites orbiting within 35,000 kilometers of the Earth. These satellites allow for great coverage, but with low speed and high latency, an exact opposite of what Starlink stands for, and what the consuming public desires. Starlink satellites, on the other hand, according to the official website, orbit only 550 kilometers from the Earth. This allows for a faster response. However, this system operates differently from a traditional satellite. This is because it is much closer to the Earth, and its coverage is smaller. So instead of communicating directly between a server and the user, the signal is sent to a satellite, and the satellite passes it on the speed of light by laser to other satellites and sends the signal to the end user. According to Business Insider, one of the speed differentials is that the speed of light in the vacuum of space is 47% faster than in fiber optic cables. The plan is that in total, we will have 12,000 Starlink satellites in the Earth's atmosphere, reaching its maximum power, both in coverage and performance. The most curious thing about this is that adding up all the active satellites in Earth orbit, we have less than 3,000 in total, including the ones Elon Musk has already put there. But 5G is coming and promises to be superior to every kind of internet we've seen so far. Is Starlink more powerful than 5G, or at least more affordable? There is a big discussion about 5G alone when compared to other technologies. I won't go into detail about all of the features here because we have already made another video about this technology. But in summary, 5G is potentially much faster and with minimal latency when compared to 4G. We could say that it is 4G on steroids. While 4G works in only one frequency spectrum, 5G works in several frequencies combined to deliver all the extra speed, the capacity of up to 100 times more users, and potential latency of up to 1 millisecond. But we must emphasize the word potential. For 5G to play its full role, it needs a new infrastructure of antennas that are different from 4G, which means having to create a whole new infrastructure almost from scratch, because 5G's high speed and low latency come precisely from working at a higher frequency than 4G, which in turn has a much shorter range. Because of this single factor, 5G will be much more powerful in denser regions, such as large cities and metropolitan areas. But these regions are precisely where cable internet dominates, because it can deliver higher speeds at a lower cost, precisely because it requires less cable. But where will Starlink come in between? And will 5G operators and cable internet distributors cannibalize each other for the most populous markets? In large centers, Starlink should not have a major impact, since the average cable internet delivers equal or higher speeds at a lower cost. But in the United States, there is already friction between cable internet distributors and companies distributing 5G. At the heart of the discussion is precisely the question: why will a person continue paying for cable internet if with 5G it gets higher speed and lower latency? Well, this is a big fight, but 5G is still just a big promise that will probably fulfill its potential only in the big centers where the internet supply is already good enough for almost any use, not to mention another problem: data caps. There is no point in 5G being faster and having less latency for the average user if they don't have unlimited data. It will only result in the customer ending up with their data plan 10 times faster. Starlink's strategy is the opposite. They don't want to compete in the most saturated market. Their goal is to bring the internet to where cable and towers don't reach, be it in the interior of the United States or in the middle of Africa, where there is simply no option. And the result of this can be huge. As much as internet access alone will not solve problems such as hunger, thirst, or even diseases due to the lack of basic sanitation in the poorest regions of the world, it can help leverage the development of infrastructure in these regions and enable people to develop themselves by giving them access to communication and information. But the big question is, can Africa afford it? According to Africa News, this is the main factor in Starlink's success in Africa. The company's first beta test in 2020, comically named Beta Better Than Nothing, according to CNBC data, worked with prices of $99 per month plus $4.99 for the installation kit. If the values applied when it is 100% operational are the same price for the whole world, in countries where the currency is worth less than the money in the real estate bank, it will already be impractical for 99% of the cases. Imagine in the regions where it would need to reach, Africa, where there is no infrastructure. Thus, the cost may be one of the biggest problems for Africa, but according to the Africa News article, price is only one of the many problems this technology may face. But there are solutions, one of them being partnerships with local private companies. However, there is another alternative so that maybe Africa doesn't depend on private investment from local companies. We already know how well China is investing in infrastructure in Africa to outsource much of the Chinese production. Well, it's not the only one. Africa is considered the next big market. Companies all over the world are looking at it, and maybe that's exactly Elon Musk's focus. The population of sub-Saharan Africa, the largest region of the continent, located south of the Great Sahara Desert, is 1.1 billion people. Most countries in this region are still dependent on commodities and the exploitation of natural resources, except South Africa, which is a country with a modern, technologically developed economy. What makes this region so interesting to the rest of the world is the growing population and the age of the population. According to a study by the United Nations, more than half of the planet's population growth by 2050 is expected to occur in Africa, with an expected population of more than 2.1 billion people in that region. The projection for 2100 is a population of more than 3.7 billion people, more than 3 times the current population. The population growth occurs due to the high rate of children per family, according to the Conversation.com article. African women have on average 4.5 children, almost twice the world average. For this reason, the median age in Africa is low, approximately 20 years according to worldmeters.info. Because the population is young and growing, the world has turned to Africa because it is potentially the next big global market, and both companies and nations have an interest in this growing consumer and labor market. And the biggest beneficiary of all of this is Africa itself and its people. China is financing and building major infrastructures on the continent, such as roads, railroads, and ports. But it is not only China that has an interest in Africa. Big companies from around the world also want a slice of this market. Samsung quickly became the leader in the local smartphone market. China's Huawei is investing heavily in telecom with 4G and 5G, and Amazon has built a $100 million data center in Cape Town, South Africa. Jack Dorsey, the former CEO of Twitter, claims that Africa will determine the future. Until the last decade, foreign investments in technology in Africa were dormant, but in the last decade, this has changed, receiving heavy investments in this market, one of the biggest investors being Facebook. But besides the interest in local startups, Facebook also wants a slice of the telecommunications market Huawei is conquering. But while these giants vie for a spot in internet markets on the African continent, either running cables or building towers, Starlink's structure will simply democratize access. But there is something even more powerful about Starlink's system than simply delivering internet where competitors cannot. It is no secret that Africa has several problems in several of its countries, perhaps the most serious of which is political, where many countries have installed dictatorships. And one of the ways to control the population is precisely the control of the media, controlling any kind of information in the country, be it television, radio, or the internet. This is nothing new. China has been doing this for a long time with what is known as the Great Firewall of China, which blocks the population's access to the outside world and to any content that the government considers dangerous or possibly harmful. According to an article in Forbes, Starlink's global internet access may mean that people will be able to access the internet without restrictions imposed by governments that control it. On the other hand, no technical skills are required to install the Starlink receivers, according to Elon Musk himself on Twitter. The Starlink terminal has motors to adjust the ideal angle to see the sky. The instructions are simple. Connect the cables and point to the sky. These instructions work in any order. No training is required. What is more curious, and perhaps worrying, is that there are questions about whether Starlink can stop censorship regimes. According to some posts on social networks, an Egyptian guy wanted to know if Starlink would be able to fight this kind of regime that controls the local internet. Can Starlink play an important role in breaking the dictatorships that still control many African countries? Or could it even democratize the internet in countries like China, North Korea, and Venezuela? Well, it would be very audacious to guarantee that Starlink will or will not be able to impact countries where the government controls the population. The amount of technical details needed to answer this question is too great. Can a country block the signal or prevent the devices from entering the country illegally? What can be argued is that for those who live in medium and large cities, it probably won't change anything. For those who live in the interior, be it in the USA or any other country, it can have a significant impact on accessibility. Africa, on the other hand, really has great potential, especially to stimulate companies that want to settle in more remote places, for whatever reason, to have access to the internet. Also, if you want me to make a video just about Africa, comment here below, because I have barely scratched the surface of the opportunities and problems of this so-called next big market. Now tell me, what do you think about Starlink and its impact on the world? Tell me about it here in the comments, and take a look at what other people are doing talking about it. I'm sure you'll have great comments on the subject, and some not so great as usual. If you made it this far, leave a like and consider subscribing to support the channel.